Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Coleman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our post-match show of Fulham's 2-2 draw against Liverpool. And Tony and I did a show last night. It was our full-time show. This is our post-match show. We go into more detail about what we watched, and we go through several talking points that come out of the match, takeaways. So we'll have several topics for us to go through. We'll also, in the second half of the show, break down the match. We'll do all that, but we have a lot to get to in this show. But before I do anything else, Tony, how you doing? You looking forward to more talk on this?
Yeah, 100%, because I think there's a hell of a lot to sort of delve into and sort of get on top of. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's honestly, we recorded right after the match, and we covered a good amount that we'll probably talk again today, but we're going to talk about it in a different way. There's still so much to get to in regards to this 2-2 draw. Let me pose it to you this way before we go to the talking points. This is just how I feel. How do you feel? Do you feel that this actually feels like a victory? I know it's not. Does it feel that way to you?
Well, I mean, in the manner in which we took away defeat to suddenly turn it around to a draw, it does, in a kind of a way, it does feel like a bit of a victory, because, we were seconds away from losing a game that we should never have been in a position to lose. And then, Harrison Reed goes and produces that. And so, suddenly you've gone from a downer to unbelievable euphoria. And you feel like you've won the game. Fulham should have won the game, is the honest truth. So, it's a bittersweet sort of feeling. But look, at the end of the day, it's still a good point against a good side. And it's 5 unbeaten. So, there's nothing really to be too down about at the moment.
So could it be possible that Fulham are going to end up getting slot sacked? It seems like teams are sacking managers left and right. I don't think so. I'm kidding. But it's crazy what's going on. Of course, Everyone has seen the news about Ruben Amorim. And then, of course, you have Maresca. Why do I feel that Slot's tenure might be in question as well? It's a very weird time in the Premier League. But let's get going, my friend. Let's get going into the talking points. And I shared what we were going to talk about. So let's start with the first one. And I was trying to pose it the best way to talk about the goal that I still feel should be disallowed from Wirtz, okay? But I wanted to pose it this way. How many points have Fulham lost to VAR against Big Six clubs? There are 2 that stand out. I'm calling it VAR. You can also talk about the technology that was given, but it's still a VAR decision. It still comes down to a VAR decision, Tony. So you and I were talking about before how many points, and then we'll talk about the incident.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a minimum of 5, and there's probably been others. Chelsea, obviously, earlier in the season, that was 3 points that potentially was taken away. Yesterday, 2. And there's been other moments. But I think, Russ, what's got to happen from this point forward is the FA, the PGMOL really need to start looking into, VAR. Again, it's not the system. The system of VAR is absolutely fine.
Yes,
it's the people that are operating it, okay? Because they are the people that are sitting there, drawing lines, making decisions. And I'm still baffled the fact that there's been no official PGMOL statement released yet, specifically defending or explaining that decision yesterday. Then we get a load of waffle about the semi-automated offside technology.
Yes.
Where they're saying that there's a 5 centimeter tolerance built into the offside. I mean, they just make it up as they go along. And they're saying, it's been there for years, but it's clearly offside. It's clearly offside. So, either they're completely and utterly incompetent and should never work the system again, or there's some kind of cheating going on that we don't know about, because you come out and explain it. Come out and explain it. Don't hide behind a 5 centimeter tolerance level. I mean, it's just a joke.
So you sent me a picture. I've already seen it several times. So when you sent the picture, I mean, it basically backs what I saw with my eyes. You know what also is interesting about this whole situation is the player himself thought he was offside. How about that? The player himself was surprised that it was reversed. I've seen comments from coming from Liverpool that he felt that it was offside. I'm paraphrasing, but again, if the player doesn't feel that it should have been a goal, how the heck is it a goal, Tony? And I've watched it back many times, okay? I've heard all the reasoning. I've heard all of this. Yes, it's either incompetence or there is this, I'm going to say it right now. I believe that it does exist, this big six bias, okay, to not ensure that a team like Liverpool is in a match, but if it's close, well, we're going to give it to them. Now, Fulham got a call too, but I don't think it was anything close to this. We're talking about, I don't think it's anywhere close. This was going in the opposite direction. This did not look close, Tony. I've watched it many times and I'm still shocked by it. So it's very upsetting because we now have the situation with Josh King from the Chelsea match. Now we have this. What do they both have in common? Oh, by the way, it's Chelsea and Liverpool. So I asked the question, let's reverse it. If this is Fulham being offside, would the goal count? I have doubts that even the technology that it would have counted, that they would have reversed it, because they actually reversed it. They called it offside. Now, I could be dead wrong on this, but this is just how I feel after the match, Tony. Like I said, it's either one of two things. It's either there's something shady going on or incompetence.
As I said, Russ, we can sit here and talk about it until the cows come home and analyze it. Anyone that knows anything about football, that has watched football, that's been involved in football, your eyes don't lie. Your eyes are there. They tell you what, they tell you what they see. Every single picture that you look at and every single angle that you look at it, you can clearly see it's offside. It is a terrible, abysmal, shocking error. Just come out, hold your hands up, say you got it wrong, okay, and move on. It doesn't change anything. It's not going to change the result. So there's no point in harping on about it, but just come out and admit that you've made an absolute shocking decision, because that's what it is. It's a shocking decision. And there's no defense. You can't hide behind a 5 centimeter, rule and all this nonsense. No, the guys in that box that made that decision got it horribly wrong. End of story.
So here's the thing, because this has come out, because I had no idea about this 5 centimeter situation. Why in Europe is it 1 centimeter? Why is it 5 in England alone? Someone has to explain that to me.
Yeah, it's just incompetence. And what you're doing is you're opening yourself up. So how can Europe have one rule, but the Premier League have another rule? It's football. It's the same game played by the same players that step out onto a football pitch week in, week out. The rules should be the same for every single football team. And you know what killed it yesterday for me, Russ, even more, is when Harry Wilson scores, you're cheering, you're celebrating, and then suddenly it goes to VAR. And now you're not cheering and celebrating, and now you're sitting and waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting. And then, yes, it's a goal. And then you're celebrating again. It's a joke. It's taking the fun and the love out of football, and it has to change. This nonsense, all these fine, minute details. You could see Harry Wilson was clearly onside.
Yep.
Yeah, the linesman got it wrong. Right? Okay, fair enough. It's gone. It should have taken them 2 seconds to admit that, and bosh, on we go. But we're sitting there waiting, and it's just killing the euphoria. Those euphoric moments when you're cheering a goal and you're celebrating. You can't enjoy it anymore.
Right. And that's a factor in all this, Tony, is that you have to wait. You have to wait for a decision, and that's very upsetting as well. And then, of course, like we've seen with the whole situation with Josh King going all the way back, right? Same thing. Huge moment for the kid, and it gets taken away from him. It gets taken away. Now, I don't think it's derailed his season whatsoever, but that was a major moment for Josh King, and it becomes just a footnote for him, which is unfair, because now we know it should have been a goal. And again, the whole thing is crazy. And And it just opens up to, I'm not saying conspiracy theories, but it opens up to the questions when things are close. Are you considering the clubs themselves? Are you thinking, well, this is Liverpool and this is Fulham? I hope you're not, because you shouldn't be. But when you have a situation like this, it actually goes through my brain. That's why I'm thinking about it. That's why I'm bringing it up. And as you said, come out, be honest with it, have a statement. Then we know. Then we know wrong or right. But since you're not doing it, they did this. I'm talking about with the Josh King situation. So that was more transparent. This one, what's going on? I've seen so much talk. It's everywhere. Besides, like I said, Ruben Amorim getting sacked, this is everywhere else. It's the two things. And and by the way, Harrison Reed's goal. So it's really the three things. But two of them come from this match. Everything, the other is a sacking. But I think if Ruben Amorim isn't sacked, this is dominating the number one topic in football around the world. And it should be, because it changes the match, Tony. It totally changes them. To think it doesn't is just, again, you're not being honest. Of course it changed the match. Of course it affected what we saw afterwards. So that's what makes what happens at the end. I guess you could say I have a topic that I think kind of evens it out a little bit, and we'll talk about that coming up next. But enough of this, because it's really just been upsetting me all day thinking about it. Think about what if. I hate doing that. What if? What if Fulham had 5 more points, Tony? Where would we be? We know where we would be. So that's why I don't want to go there. But let's move on. And we've talked about this on Full Time, but I really want to dive into a little bit more detail, because I'm going to say this right now. I said it on the other show that we did. You and I are just talking on Saturday, and you said you predicted a formation change. And I don't think you knew anything. I don't think you were talking to anyone. This is just your idea. You were just analyzing what could potentially happen. And you got it spot on. The only difference was he picked Lukic instead of Bergen. And actually, Lukic worked well. So want to give Marco credit for that. But Tony, the formation change worked well. Let's talk about what that meant. We'll also talk about how Fulham played this on their turn. The match was played on Fulham's terms. We'll get to that next. I just want to focus on what the formation change did for this match.
Well, what it did, Russ, is it gave us a little bit more protection out of possession of the ball, but then it allowed us to be offensively more productive because of what Kearney gives you when he's in possession. So, Kearney always plays safe side, always looks to move the ball forward, keeps the ball ticking over, keeps it moving into good areas, which then, allows Smith Rowe, Wilson to, make runs into areas and get in between lines where they know that they're going to get the ball. And, you've got to remember there's been games this season where, before Smith Rowe hit this sort of purple patch, where he was actually making some great runs, was getting into really good positions, and he just wasn't getting the ball because, Berger particularly doesn't always see that pass. But what Kearney does is he's always, checking his shoulders, looking at the peripheral vision that he's seeing players working off, and he gives the ball in those situations. And then obviously with the 5, Robertson and Castagna actually positionally, it worked very well because they didn't get caught too much out of position when it became unbalanced in terms of when Liverpool were breaking onto us. So it just gave us a platform to be a little bit more aggressive offensively, but also a lot tighter and a lot more structured defensively.
Okay, and I think that again was the right call. So let's just theorize. What do you think might have happened if he went with the formation that it generally uses? Do you think we would have seen what we saw? Do you think a lot of this really is down to the tactical change?
It's obviously it's difficult to say because that would have meant Kevin starting potentially, Kearney not starting, Diop coming out of that situation. So I think it would have I think we would have been exposed a little bit more, especially with the quality that Liverpool have in the final third and the midfield players that they have that can, get on the ball and create, especially McAllister, who, doesn't need a second opportunity to find a bit of space and make something happen. And I think we actually marshaled him really well yesterday.
I agree.
To a point. So I think that we nullified them in a lot of ways, and it was on Slot to try and find a way to, to counteract that. And actually, he struggled. He really struggled.
Yeah, even in the second half, because again, we're going to talk about when we break down the match that their intensity picked up and their aggressiveness picked up. But I don't know if they still figured out how to play against us, because that's going to lead me to talk about our next talking point, Tony. And this is the beauty of, listen, I always have to say this when I talk about Marco Silva, because I've been critical, but I think I'm fair. When he deserves criticism, he gets it. When he deserves praise, he gets it. He deserves a lot of praise here, because what's good here is, and of course the players and all the coaching staff all deserve credit for this, because the match was mostly played on Fulham's terms, except for, like we talk about, sometime in the second half, there was this intensity from Liverpool and aggressiveness. But beyond that, it was at the tempo. Fulham were controlling the play in their way. Liverpool might have had the ball, but it was almost like a road to nowhere, because they were not making any headway. They were, if you listen to any Liverpool show, which I've listened to several after the match, they're basically talking about sideways passing and not being able to break through. It actually was a little monotonous, the way that they were trying to break us down. I'm talking about Liverpool. They could not break us down, especially in the first half, Tony. And that's why the goal from Wilson, I think, changes everything. We'll talk about that. But beyond that, this match was played on Fulham's terms, not on Liverpool's.
Yeah, to a degree it was. And I think that actually what Fulham did very quickly is identify Liverpool's weaknesses. And actually their biggest weakness is at their centre-half pairing, believe it or not, with Konate. He is an accident, he's an accident waiting to happen. And more often than not, he gets caught wrong side, doesn't get across quick enough, doesn't cover the ground. He's a very lumpy footballer, not particularly technically great. And he is a real weak link for them. And he's one of the reasons why Liverpool are struggling defensively this season. I really believe that. So we identified that early. And actually, we put a lot of balls down his channel and we started to open them up. And once Fulham got a sniff of that, they started to knock on the door. But also, you got to remember that we had some very good technical players on the pitch yesterday. Emil Smith-Rowe, Wilson, Kearney, Lukic to a degree. They're good footballers. And if you get them on the ball, if they're at it and they make good decisions, they will make things happen. And that's why Fulham looked so bright yesterday, because we got at them. And we got the ball to them in areas where they could, hurt Liverpool and affect the game. And they did.
Okay. So I want to share this from our friend here, Black, White, and Fred. Thank you for sharing this. Think TC on the same level as ESR in terms of technical ability, which allows ESR to bounce off of him.
Yeah, listen, both very good players. And actually, I thought, their understanding of each other yesterday was top class. It really was. I mean, the intricate passing, the 1-2 bounces, the give and goes. It was great to watch. And, I'm all about technical players, Ross, because I think what they do is they bring this, what Kearney brings when he plays is a calmness on the ball. And also, he has the ability to find good options and which, most of the time he does. He was a little bit careless in the first 10, 15 minutes, gave the ball away a couple of times unnecessarily, but that's going to happen when you're, dropping in, looking to get on the ball, make things happen. Sometimes you get closed down or the angle changes and you can't quite make the pass. But all in all, he gave us that opportunity to build and at a pace that was right for us.
Right. And listen, we talked about this on Full Time. It was good to see Kearney in reverse. What I mean by in reverse is that instead of playing 30 or playing a little less than that, You started him, and you going back to our friend Chris, the Liverpool supporters. This wasn't safe Silva. This was more aggressive Silva. This is trying to take control of the intensity of the match. That to me was not just a formation, but the choices he made to basically put Fulham in a good position to get ahead and stay ahead, even though it didn't end that way. But I think the decision to start Tom Kearney, the decision to start a starting 11, I think worked very well. He just, like I said, Marco deserves a lot of credit for what we saw at Craven Cottage, and the players do as well. Everyone, it really was a team situation.
Also,
and yeah, go ahead.
Mainly on that is that with Tete out injured yesterday, what Marco Silva actually did was protect our fullbacks, because if he'd gone to a 4 at the back, I think yesterday, then Robinson and Castagna defensively would have been massively exposed.
Yeah, sure.
Particularly Castagna down the right in a 4. But what he did by bringing Diop in is basically, sort of narrowed the space, but then allowed the opportunity for Castagna and Robinson to get a lot higher and be much more effective as an attacking option in the final third. So it actually worked very well. And then the balance as well, with Robinson obviously getting further on, it meant that Castagna could cover around, and actually we did become a 4 at times. So it worked very well.
Yeah, no, let's see, I'm going to just keep sharing. Tactical Silva beat boring Slot. There was no question of that. The situation with Slot is not good, my friend. It's not good at all. Honestly, very, very good stuff, guys.
I can't see the comments, so I can't see them. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I can actually. I'm sorry. I will start sharing the comments again. Let me just pull that up. I'll pull them back up there, and then you can see the comments. Yeah. Sorry about that. I pulled that up.
That's all right.
Let's see. Yeah. So let's move on, Tony. Let's now talk about, before we talk about the goal from Harrison Reed. Obviously, they score. I'm talking about Liverpool. And it's funny, I don't know if I got the same broadcast you got, but they basically called it a Liverpool victory. And Gakpo wins it for Liverpool. That was the comment. Gakpo wins it for Liverpool. Not so fast. Not so fast. And that's going to lead to the next topic, because I like this term, because with everything going on in this match, with the decision, with the Wirtz goal becoming a goal, it seemed like everything was going against Fulham. But I think the world got basically offset by that. The football gods gave us Harrison Reed's goal, one of the goals of the season, Tony. So I want to just paint the picture. I know everyone's seen it, but the talk I've heard about this, I've listened to a lot of talk on this, and I don't know if this is excuse making. Chris, maybe you can talk a little bit about that as you're watching this. Well, this is what I heard. Liverpool were expecting a long throw from Robinson, so they were out of position. They were all in the box. And that's why Harrison Reed had all that room. When I heard that, I'm thinking, well, yeah, I can understand that, but I also think it's excuse making. It really is. It's trying to take away or basically explain what happened. And they can't explain it because the football gods gave us Harrison Reed's goal to offset the other stuff that happened in this match. That goal, he'll never be able to do that again in his life. And we talked about it on Full Time. Let's talk about the goal, because this is something, what's so great about it, not even a minute later from Gakpo scoring, not even a minute later.
Yeah, it was one of those, crazy football moments that you get. We had it, several weeks ago when Fulham played Manchester City in an unbelievable game of football that just, brought out some crazy situations. And it was a once in a lifetime moment for Harrison Reed. And ultimately, look, from Liverpool's perspective, they won't be happy with how they defended that situation. They may well have been expecting a long throw, but they didn't react, Russ. They didn't react quick enough. And actually it became a 4v2 situation very quickly. Liverpool didn't get out, too many players in the box. But the truth of the matter is, Harrison Reed could try that again 100 times. and he wouldn't be able to produce what he produced. It's a once in a lifetime hit. And yeah, it was a magnificent strike, unbelievable goal. And actually Fulham thoroughly deserved it. And you know, football only takes a second to score a goal, and it's never done until it's done. So you know, it was a great moment, and I hope that not too many Fulham fans missed it walking out of the stadium after Gakpo scored, because they would have been absolutely gutted to miss that.
Yeah.
Gutted.
Again, what a special moment. And listen, after everything went on in that match, you know, I'm watching, you know, you watched it at home, I watched it at home, and we're watching this and dejected, right? And I asked you at the beginning, did it feel like a victory? And what I meant was, because of everything that happened in this match, of course it's not a victory, but it's well-deserved. It's a well-deserved point, and I think Fulham deserved to win it. I think that's what I come out of this, is that Fulham deserved to get all 3 points, Tony. I can't get past that.
Yeah, it's frustrating, Russ, because, as I said, you know, they had the best opportunities in the game. There's no question about it. You know, the Harry Wilson chance was a prime example of that. And then, you know, but this is the Premier League football, and unfortunately, at this level, if you switch off, and if you don't do the basics well, which, you know, Fulham didn't do in the last few moments of the game, you can be punished by good sides. And Liverpool are a good side. They've got good players. They got into a dangerous situation. Fulham didn't defend it very well, and we got punished. And you will get punished at this level, either for not being clinical enough at the other end, for seeing the game out and making sure that you've got, you know, the goals in hand to make sure that, you know, if they do break or do get a goal, it's not going to affect you. So, you know, Fulham have themselves to blame to a degree for not putting the game to bed, but also for not defending that situation well. It just so happens that Harrison Reed then got them out of jail with that, you know, spectacular, you know, goal. But look, you know, Steve Reynolds hits the nail on the head there. Resilience. That is what I've been talking about, Russ. In the last 5 games, Fulham have found this resilience from somewhere. And that is what's held us in really good stead up until this point. And we're going to need plenty of it on Wednesday night against Chelsea.
Absolutely. And that's going to lead to the final talking point, Tony. Should Fulham use the same tactics against Chelsea? Would you do the same thing?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Because you're playing a completely different animal. They've got much more pace than Liverpool. I think they're much more fluent. They're much more effective. And I don't think that situation will keep that formation will keep us on the back foot for far too many periods of the game. And I just don't think that we will be good enough defensively to keep Chelsea out for 90 plus minutes with that formation, unfortunately. So no, I don't think he will. Okay. I don't think we should.
Okay. So you think that we should go back to our normal formation with a similar lineup, say, that played against Crystal Palace?
If it were me, Russ, with the players available, I'd actually go with a 4-3-3.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just think that, you know, if you go forward at the back with 2 holding midfield players, you're going to invite Chelsea on. They're going to lap that up all day long with their pace, with the players they've got that can affect the game. None more so than Cole Palmer, you know, who'll be chomping at the bit. And as I said, I just don't think that defensively, Robinson and Castagna will be good enough in wide areas to stop those balls from those areas coming into the box. And we didn't defend them particularly well the other day against Liverpool. And I just think that with the 3 in midfield and the 3 wide players, we've got to take the game to Chelsea. We've got to take the game to Chelsea. We've got to be very very on the front foot, and we've got to be aggressive. And by doing that, we have to play players that can get on the ball and get at their fullbacks and get at their defence, because I think defensively they are poor, and I think they're there to be got at.
Okay, very good. All right. Great stuff. We're halfway through the show. Coming up next, Tony and I are going to break down the match, and we will end with man of the match. We've already given our end of the match. I'm sorry, man of the match from the last show, but we'll do it again. Okay, Tony, let's get to it. So let's now talk about the first half. Like I said, we kind of already went through this, but I want to do it again. We could spend a little bit more time. So let's talk about the first half and what we watched in this match. And if I remember correctly, on full time, we really discussed in the beginning stages, Fulham were just in control. And yes, Liverpool, I had only a few occasions. I think they had the opportunity from Gakpo. But before we talk about the Wilson goal again, I want to talk about that. Give me your thoughts about how Fulham were set up. We already talked about it, but just your overall thoughts in the first half.
Yeah, look, it gave us a good foothold in the game, like I said, and not a lot really happened in that first 15 minutes. It was a bit bitty both ways, really. Took a bit of time for everyone to sort of settle down and get their their A games in place. But once we started to get Kearney on the ball, get Smith Rowe on the ball, start to getting them in between lines and running at players, then things started to open up. And obviously, in 17 minutes, you get the opportunity where Harry Wilson gets a great through ball, runs through that channel, and it's Konaté's channel, and great finish. We haven't talked enough about that finish. It's actually a fantastic finish.
Yeah,
someone that's in great form at the moment as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the goal in general. So I'll go right back to you, because Harry Wilson, just a little spoiler, is my man of the match. We'll get to that, but in great form. So what's interesting with all the players that are out, Tony, and let's be honest, we've talked a lot about Harry Wilson. I was one that said over the summer maybe we should move on from Harry Wilson. Hell, I was very much wrong. And like I said, maybe it just took him to really just enter his prime where he looks so confident, and it seems like he is just a different player. You know what's funny about him, and maybe this is a strange connection or strange player to compare him to, but it almost feels like to me, Tony, that he's having his Clint Dempsey moment. Like he is now taken Clint Dempsey at one point scored, 19, 20 goals in one season, but he is having that kind of like confidence, the ability to score goals like Dempsey did way back then. Is that wrong to compare where Wilson is now in his career to where Dempsey was probably around the same time?
No, I think, comparisons are always going to be there. I just think that finally, with a run of games and his confidence high, Harry Wilson has found a level, and he's playing with no fear. He's got a lot of confidence, and actually, I don't think he gets the full credit that he deserves, because he's actually a really tidy, very good technical player, and he's got a hell of a left foot. And yeah, look, I think that ultimately we are very lucky, to have him, and very lucky that Marco Silva's managed to get a tune out of him. What's important now, Russ, is that we get him tied down in a contract and get that sorted out ASAP, because the longer it goes on and the longer that it's left, all that's going to happen is you're inviting the Lions to the door, and it's only going to take a top 6 team to come in, turn his head, and he'll be off. And you'll be sitting there scratching yours and thinking, how the hell did we not get this tied down and sorted out?
Well, you have this situation. You also have the situation with Ryan Sessegnon too. So they have some business to take care of. And Wilson. So hopefully they do what we're talking about, Fulham, and hopefully Harry Wilson wants to stay, because he's now found the club that basically to be his own. I feel like he was on this football journey with Liverpool, sending him out on loan everywhere and could not find a home. He now has a home. So I guess he also has to ask himself this question. I think I've seen comments about it. He has to decide where he wants to be. And I hope it's at Craven Cottage. I hope it's at Fulham, because I think that they've embraced him. He's embraced them. Basically, both sides have embraced each other. So let's hope that happens, my friend. And I'm glad that we're talking about Harry Wilson. So what were your thoughts after we get the goal? And did you feel at that point that Fulham, I mean, I guess it's natural. You have to score the second goal. You have to score the second goal. Were you feeling that way?
Yeah, of course. You always feel that one goal is never going to be enough against Liverpool. But I was also thinking that, how resilient are we going to be defensively? Because, this is Fulham we're talking about, and they've always got a mistake or a moment where they switch off or something happens. So it was critical that once that goal went in, that the sort of 5-10 minutes after that we settled down, didn't make any mistakes. Everyone kept doing their job. The concentration levels stayed where they were. And, they carried on playing exactly the way that they were, which was, moving the ball well, getting Kearney on it, getting Smith Rowe into good areas, getting Wilson into good areas, trying to get Raul, into the box where he could affect the game. And as I said, just making sure that they were switched on 100%, because if you switch off against Liverpool at any moment, they have players in their team that can punish you.
Absolutely, Tony. Very good. All right. Let's move on. And we talked about this on full-time show, so we can just talk about it briefly again. Going into the second half, I'll pose it to you this way. Did you feel at halftime that Fulham needed to make any changes, or did you feel stick with what we got and let's ride it out? What were you feeling at halftime?
No, this was definitely a coming out, not making any changes whatsoever. Keep the 11 out there that have got you to this point. They're all in the game moment. They're all switched on. They're all concentrated. They're up to speed with the tempo of the match. So by making changes, what you're doing is you are taking a gamble and a risk. And I think the game was still, too close to start making changes. So it was important that, we kept the continuity and they were playing well. So, there was no need to make any changes.
Okay, excellent. All right. So let's now talk about the second half. And obviously there's a good amount to discuss. So let's start here, because I've mentioned that Liverpool came out fairly strong. You knew that there'd be a reaction, Tony. So I'll pose it to you this way. How did Fulham react to their basically more aggressive play, more direct balls, like in there, just being more aggressive? Do you think Fulham handled it well? Before we talk about the Vert situation one more time, we're not going to spend too much time talking about it, but what did you make of how Fulham handled Liverpool, the beginning stages of the second half? Let's say the first 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, look, you expected Liverpool to come out and offer a lot more than they did in the first half. But I think you have to give Fulham credit for the fact that they nullified them, they kept them quiet, to a large degree. And I was expecting a wave of attacks from Liverpool and obviously certain players to step up, because I think they had definitely underwhelmed in that first period. And there were signs that Liverpool were knocking on the door, in that first 15 minutes, and Fulham weren't reacting quick enough to those issues. And a lot of it was around, dominating the ball and keeping possession. And in fact, Liverpool started to then, dominate possession.
They were.
And that was then because there was the warning signs, they were there. They were there.
Right. And then, listen, it started from the get-go when you have Gakpo put the ball back in net, but it was obviously offside. But I think that was actually the first warning signal. But you had several. Then, of course, you have the goal. So I don't want to talk about the goal. We've talked about this, how they get the equalizer. We talk about how it ended up. The question is, how did Fulham react after the goal from Liverpool? That's what I want to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, look, I think that their heads could have gone quite easily. It was a difficult moment. Obviously, they don't see what we're seeing, so the players are just going by the fact that, okay, so he must be onside because VAR have deemed it to be. So, they've then got to get on with the game and get back into that mindset of, right, how can we now, go and win it? But whilst we were still at it and still, trying to take the game, obviously the key moment for me was the Harry Wilson hitting the crossbar.
Let's go there right now. Yeah, let's go there.
That was a really key moment, because I think that, you score that, and I think the outcome of the game is Fulham go on and win it. I really do believe that.
Okay.
And that was a little bit of a game changer in a way, because suddenly I think there was a little bit of a seed of doubt in Fulham's mind about whether or not they could actually go and win this game. And that gave Liverpool the impetus to think, okay, we can maybe nick this now.
Okay. So this ended up being a turning point. Let's call it what it is. It's a turning point. It's an opportunity. You said on full time he needs to score there. I remember you saying this. He needs to score there. And we're talking, I hate to go back to centimeters, but we're talking very close again to getting a goal, which I think would catapult Fulham to victory. I do. And because he doesn't score, it hits the crossbar, it does the reverse. It now gives confidence to Liverpool and maybe a little doubt, as you said, to Fulham that they could win this match. And maybe then it might change how that they were feeling. Like, well, listen, let's just see this match out. Let's just get the point instead of going for all 3 points. So I don't know if that's what was going on, but that, again, a major turning point. I'm glad that's why we're talking about it. And again, listen, Harry Wilson's my man of the match. He, again, that would have been a fantastic goal, but it was close. It was close, and it kind of changed the game.
Slot definitely changed their mentality, or the players definitely changed their mentality in the second half. There was definitely a lot more urgency. Slot clearly got into them at half time. Yeah. Bradley was a little bit more aggressive.
Chris agrees with you, by the way. Chris agrees.
Yeah,
with you.
I mean, let's say it might not necessarily, but I think that it just would have. I think Liverpool would have gone at that point. But look, they were a lot more aggressive, and Fulham. It was up to Fulham to try and match that.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. All right, so we might as well go all the way. Well, before we go all the way, let's talk a little bit about the substitutions. I think we should definitely talk about the substitutions before we go and talk about what happened in the end, because you and I, again, we've talked a lot about Kevin, right? We talked a lot about Kevin. Kevin actually, I thought, played fairly well for his time on there, and actually sets up Harrison Reed's goal. So I want to give him credit for that. But what did you make of Marco's substitutions?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I wouldn't necessarily have changed anybody at that point, because, like I said, in a game like that, the players are in the thick of it. They're up to speed. I think there was maybe a little bit of tiredness creeping in, and you want to get fresh legs on. So I understand it. I didn't have any issue with the changes, that he made, especially early on. I think, Kevin for 15 minutes coming on, at the moment, we all know that he's struggling to find, something, and maybe he could come on and give you that little bit of brilliance and individuality that can go and win you in the game. Ironically, he did, he did give the assist for the equaliser, so we've got to take that. But yeah, and it was good to see, Kusasari come on a bit later, and Sander Berg, obviously, I think was also a good choice, because he gives you that little bit of extra height and power in midfield. But then you do lose a bit of the the quality that Kenny gives you. So it is a gamble. It's always a gamble. Any subs gamble.
It's a little give and take. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so that's going to lead us to get to stoppage time, and we'll go to the goal from Gakpo that gives Liverpool the lead. And we've talked about this on full time, and I've watched this back several times, and not Joachim Anderson's finest moment, Tony. He misses it here, but it's more than that. It also involves, I believe, Robinson as well. This is just poor defending at an end of the match, maybe tired legs, maybe that's what was going on. But let's talk about Gakpo's goal, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, as you know, Russell, we spoke about it yesterday. I think that it's there's a phase of play that goes on before the ball reaches, the penalty area where Anderson is being, blamed for that. In my opinion, Anthony Robinson has to defend that situation far better. And he had a terrible habit throughout the game yesterday of not getting tight enough at times and sort of jumping in and half turning his back into tackles. And it's a load of nonsense. It's a bad habit he's picked up, and it's something he's got to get out of his game. If there's a ball to be won, you either stand up and see the man out or see him to the byline, or you've got to go and win the tackle and smash him and take the ball and everything else. So ultimately, I think he defended that situation poorly. The ball's come across. Anderson has got his body shape all wrong. And, at the end of the day, you got to call it what it is, Russ. It's a poor goal. We've given away a really poor goal. And to lose the game on that would have been sickening, actually, because it could have been so avoided. And, we have to do better in those situations.
Yeah.
We have to do better in those situations.
Totally agree, Tony. And that's going to leave one more time to talk about Harrison Reed's goal. And again, like Chris said, maybe what Gakpo did inspired Fulham's players. You ticked them off. I don't know. But we're talking 1 minute later. And like I said, I've already mentioned this. The discussion has to do with Liverpool thinking that it's a long throw from Robinson, and it wasn't. It screwed them up, and that's what led to the goal. I call that hogwash, right? Even if they defended better, I don't know. And again, I think it's excuse making, and no one could have predicted this Harrison Reed goal. But for whatever reason, Anthony Robinson, for the majority of the game, was doing these long throws, Tony. He decides not to here. Kevin gets the ball and sets up Harrison Reed for the goal of his life. The goal of his life. And I look forward to talking to the Hammersmith M boys about this. They're going to love talking about this. I want to get their view of this, what they went through. Because I've seen a lot of incredible goals watching Fulham over the years. Berbatov stands out as Bobby Zamora. There's some great goals. I'm talking about some Mitrovic, some wonderful goals. Tony, this is up there.
Oh, it's as we've said many times already, Russ. It's an outstanding shot. And as I said, if he tried that 100 times now, he wouldn't be able to achieve the same result. He just wouldn't. It's just one of those moments that
everything worked.
Yeah, and it's going to be up there, goal of the season already. It's going to be a contender.
It has to be.
And look, Fulham took advantage of a situation that Liverpool responded very slowly to. Yeah. They'll be disappointed with the fact that they didn't get out, close the ball down quicker and all of that. But ultimately, even if they would have got someone running, at the end of the day,
I still think he would have got the shot off.
Yeah, he would have got the shot off. And as I said, it's just one of those moments that, again, if you tried it 100 times, that ball flies over the bar, goes wide, hits a defender, doesn't, it just happened to be in that moment, in that time, it was just Harrison Reed's moment. And you know what? He deserved it, because to be honest with you, he's been a bit part all season, hasn't had much joy, hasn't had a lot of game time. And I really like him. I think he's a great character, true professional. I don't think we use him enough, is the honest truth. And I was just delighted for him that he had that moment, and that he can look back on that, regardless of what happens in January or at the end of the season, he'll always have that moment.
He will, Tony. And what's fascinating about this, we're talking about two players, Tom Kearney and Harrison Reed, that I can remember talking over the summer. It's time to move on from these guys, and they continue to prove me wrong, which I want. I want every player to prove me wrong. If I say, it's time for you to go, prove me wrong. And both of them have proven me wrong. So kudos to Harrison Reed. What a great try. And I've always liked Harrison Reed as a player. I just thought, you know what, maybe we need to get younger at the position. But Harrison Reed obviously is showing you he has something to offer. Tom Kearney certainly does, which is good. It's actually very good. And I can say both of these players deserve all the praise that they're getting, especially Harrison Reed for that goal. He deserves all the praise. Congratulations, Harrison Reed. What a goal. All right. We already did man of the match. I had Harry Wilson. Tony, who did you have again?
I went a little bit off the sort of normal beat yesterday. I thought Sasa Lukic yesterday.
That's right. I remember Sasa Lukic.
Yeah, I thought he was outstanding yesterday in midfield. He was at the heart of pretty much everything that we did. His energy, his work
Very true,
rate.
Chris. Very true. I should never be the full manager. Very true.
He kept a good tempo in there. He linked play through the middle. He was box to box. I just thought he had everything yesterday. And for me, man of the match.
Okay, very good. All right. So Chris had man of the match Harrison Reed, and like I said, I had Harry Wilson, and I stand by that. But it's a good show. We really haven't talked enough about how well Sasa Lukic played. And listen, I've been talking about how I prefer Bergen, but again, these players keep proving me wrong. They show their value. It's I still think it's a game by game basis. I just don't really prefer that double pivot. I don't like it, but when they're individually playing, say, with a Kearney or in a Wobie, I think it works. I think you can mix and match these guys. When they play together, I don't know if it works. That's my whole thing. Okay. So Chris basically nails what we should talk about the end of the show, my friend. Got to beat Chelsea in midweek. Tony, real quick for maybe 5 minutes. Can they beat Chelsea?
We can beat anyone, Russ. It's going to come down to, quite a few factors. Obviously, number one, how Marco Silva sets us up. Number two, the mentality of the group on the pitch, how much they want it. Are they, willing to work as hard as they've shown? And number three, it's going to come down to that word that's got us through the last 5 games really well, which is resilience.
Yeah.
I think that,
that's the difference with this group right now.
Yeah,
it's the resilience.
Absolutely. But, Chelsea have some very good, individuals. Enzo Fernando, obviously, yeah. Palmer, Pedro. But for me, the one player that we have to be really mindful of is Neto, because he always
will kill us. Yeah.
Always worries me. And,
yeah, I agree.
Anthony Robinson and Castagna, whoever plays in those fullback areas, is going to have to be, on their game, because he's a dangerous player. But like I said, defensively, I think their 2 centre halves are very average.
Yep.
And I think they're there to be got at. And if we can get Raul in the right areas, yep. and get him the ball in the right areas, and we know he's a danger in the box, so let's get those crosses in. He can be a threat and we can cause him a problem. So, yeah, absolutely, we can win the game. No question.
I have to share this from Ben Lawrence. I just, man of the match, Craig Pawson wearing his Liverpool shirt under his black one. That's pretty funny, Ben. Okay, so I actually think Fulham have a very good chance. Let me ask you before we wrap this up, how much of a factor is the whole Maresca situation? The fact that they're potentially going to have Liam Rosenior as their new manager. How does that affect this one match?
Who would be a football manager, Russ, honestly? Who in this day and age today would want to be a football manager? I mean, it's just a joke.
Insanity. It's insanity.
No, I don't think it's going to make one iota of a difference, to be honest with you. They showed yesterday against Manchester City. At the end of the day, Chelsea managed to get a point yesterday against the so-called one of the best teams in Europe, with a guy that's never managed in his life. At the end of the day, it's about the players. And if the players perform and play to their abilities, they win you the football match is basically the bottom line. All the manager does is get you organised, gives you some instructions and asks you to play a certain way. I think that, as I said, Fulham approach the game in the right way and have that belief and that bravery, because they're going to have to be brave. They've got every chance of getting a really positive result.
Okay, excellent. All right. Before we go, Chris, I know this isn't a Patriot show, but I have to share this because I just want Chris to hear this. Patriots to beat the Chargers. Also, Chris, just so you know, the Patriots are playing Sunday night here, and it happens to be my daughter's birthday. So I am hoping they win this game. She's turning 22, and she was born into a Patriots family, and let's hope they win this match. All right. Well, that's going to do it for – did I say match? What am I doing? Win that playoff game. Boy, my head's everywhere. I have to wrap this up. For Tony Gold, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.